Welcome to the Million Pound Mission Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Shively, the PhD, the previously heavy dude, and I'm on a 1 million pound mission. Now, I've personally lost over 100 pounds, and I've applied what I've learned from my own transformation journey to help my hometown clients lose over 35,000 pounds in just 5 years. Now I'm on a mission to produce over 1 million pounds of results by delivering my best weekly tips, motivation, inspirational stories, and transformation strategies so that you can gain clarity about what you need to do to reach your goals and give you the confidence to take action. And the perfect time to start taking action is right now. So let's do this. Well, hello there, good looking. How's it going out there in podcast land? It's the PhD, Adam Shively, episode 60 of the Million Pound Mission. You guys fired up? You better be. This is a good one. Now, as you guys know, as I've been talking about on the show, I'm kind of working to hone in on my podcasting craft. So we're adding some new segments to the show that you can count on happening every week. The first segment is going to be the iTunes review shout out of the week. So this week's iTunes review shout out is from Bevy17. Here's what she had to say. In addition to being a moderately cool dude, come on, Bevy. Moderately? All right. Full on PhD cool dude. All right. She says, Adam is super smart and observant. There we go. He's really taken the time to identify trends with his clients. He uses these podcasts to really share that knowledge. And if you give them a listen, I promise you that there will be multiple moments that you feel like he's in your head and talking to you alone. I love that. She says, it's eerie, but clearly he's on to something because everything he says is relatable. Let him drop some truth bombs on you and take his advice. He's a pretty clever guy. Just don't tell him I said that. Nice, Bevy. I promise you we'll walk away with some meaningful advice to help you take the next step towards achieving your goals. Bevy17, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to leave that review on iTunes. If you guys want a shot at being the iTunes review of the week, go ahead and drop me a review and a rating on iTunes. Now, it's time for a little segment that we're going to call The PhD Gives You Something for Free. All right, so we started this last week. I hooked you up with something free. We're going to come back again every week with a new freebie for you to check out to help you get better results. All right, I want you to be able to check out some of the stuff that I do to help you apply what I talk about in these shows and get better results. So this week's freebie is my Amazing Results Scorecard. All right, so I've podcasted a few different episodes on getting amazing results, my Amazing Results formula. I basically took what I learned from my own weight loss story, losing 100 pounds, all my clients losing all the weight, and all that hands-on experience. I've identified some things and some patterns that we need to really focus in on. So I've got my 8 essential components of an amazing transformation. You can go to my website, www.transformationcoach.me, and you can see the area where you can get the Amazing Results Scorecard. You can fill it out. Once you fill it out, I'll kick you an email with some ideas on how to improve in the 8 essential categories and get better results. All right, last thing, now that I've given you a freebie, I'm going to have one big ask to help you, help me, help you, and help me support the mission. All right, so my one ask this week with supporting the Million Pound Mission is share this episode. This week we're dealing with overcoming anxiety. If you know someone that deals with anxiety, stress, panic attacks, give this episode a share on your favorite social media platform. You can share the blog link, the episode. If you're on your iPhone, on the podcast app, there's 3 little dots that are somewhere on the screen. Usually it's the top left corner or the top right corner. You can click on those 3 dots, and one of the options is share this episode. And you can just choose what platform you want to share it on, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. Click your favorite platform and just give it a quick share right now while you're on your phone or at the end of the show. I would greatly appreciate that. Thank you for supporting the Million Pound Mission. All right, now let's get on to this week's episode, episode 60. Overcoming Anxiety with my friend Ashley James. Now, Ashley James is somebody that is just such a valuable person to bring onto the show because at the point of this recording, she's interviewed almost 200 holistic healers, people that like Dr. Oz, Deepak Chopra. I was even on the show. I somehow snuck on there. Episode 181. Check it out. Learn True Health podcast. Just her podcast alone is so valuable. I encourage you guys to check that out. Again, it's the Learn True Health podcast. But just being able to take somebody that's interviewed so many high-level thinkers in the area of health, wellness, and nutrition and ask her, hey, what are some key takeaways? Have her distill that information down into some takeaways that she's applying in her own life and then that we can take and apply as well. It's so valuable. That's why you guys are going to love this episode. But also on top of that, she has a set process that has helped herself and people that she knows overcome anxiety. And she actually ran me through it. She talked me right through it on the show, and I immediately felt better. I've talked about it before. I've suffered from anxiety attacks in the past, and through different things, my meditation practice, that's helped a lot. But Ashley just added another very, very helpful tool to my toolbox to help combat anxiety. So you guys are going to love that as well. So without further ado, let's get to it. Episode 60, Overcoming Anxiety with Ashley James. I have one of my new podcasting buddies, Ashley James, on the line with me, and she is going to rock your world, dropping some major knowledge. Ashley has interviewed hundreds of holistic health experts. She is a wealth of knowledge, and I am so psyched to have her on here with us. So Ashley, first and foremost, welcome to the TransformationCoach.me podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here today, and I really look forward to teaching your wonderful listeners how they can completely eliminate anxiety from their life. This is emotion that no longer needs to control them. I'm thrilled to come here and teach that to you. And also, I know you wanted to discuss a bit more about all the things I've learned in my almost 200 interviews with holistic healthcare practitioners. And so I'm very thrilled to be here today.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good goal to see if we could sum up everything in like 5 minutes after all those interviews.
Each interview is, can be about 90 minutes long. So I've got like more than 200 hours. Let's sum it up in 5 minutes.
It's amazing. And I'll be sure to put a link in the show notes for you all to check out her podcast, because it is just like a treasure trove of holistic health and healing knowledge with just amazing health and fitness minds. And so we won't spend too much time just talking about how awesome it is, because it'll be obvious. As soon as you guys lock into that, you're going to be like, whoa, this is a lot of really valuable info. So Ashley, before we dove into the anxiety topic, I did kind of want to pick your brain a little bit and just, you've interviewed so many people. What have you found yourself implementing that you've learned that maybe you didn't expect? That, I'm going to start implementing this or that.
Oh my gosh. So many things. Yeah. So many. So what's really funny about being a podcaster and doing these interviews, I actually took a course by Andrew Warner, who's one of the podcasts I've been listening to for about 8 years now. And it's for entrepreneurs. It's not a health podcast, and I'm totally a health geek, but I also geek out about marketing, and because my husband and I are entrepreneurs. And he hosted this little course called Interview Your Heroes, and I took it a few years ago, well before I thought I would ever start a podcast, just because I love everything he does. And it's so funny because now that I'm interviewing my heroes, I was like, man, he really nailed it with the title of that, that course, where he basically went behind the scenes and taught some things that he does to be a successful podcaster. And that really came in handy. But the idea that you're interviewing your heroes, I'm interviewing these amazing holistic healthcare practitioners who, what's really funny is they all come from different backgrounds. They have MDs, so medical doctors, NDs, naturopathic physicians, osteopaths, traditional Chinese medicine practitioners, massage therapists, you name it. The list goes on and on. A lot of health coaches, fantastic health coaches. And what's interesting is they almost always have the same story. They're bumping through life, kind of had a plan, and then they got sick. And the mainstream medical system completely could not help them. And then they found holistic medicine and they got their health back. And they had this light bulb moment where they went, I'm going to help people get their health back, because the pharmaceutical drugs and this giant juggernaut of this industry that we've been brainwashed to think is the only way to have health is not working. It's completely failing us. And in fact, has been failing us at least since the 1950s, when they started telling people to eat low fat. And that's really where we went downhill in many ways. So it's so interesting that even MDs, who are very traditionally trained to look at symptoms of the body and treat symptoms with drugs, and they're taught a very small nutrition course. In fact, I just interviewed an MD who said, I thought I knew everything about nutrition because I paid a lot of money for my education. And that's what MDs believe. We believe because we pay top dollar and we go to Yale or we go to Harvard and we are given one class in one semester on nutrition in their 8 years of education and residency, that she believed, and all the other doctors that she went to school with believed, that that's all you needed to know about nutrition. So food and diet play a very minor role when it comes to healing the body, when it comes to mainstream medical system, because they're looking to treat your symptoms with drugs. They're not looking to help you gain health. And so another big lesson I learned is listening to the symptoms of the body. A lot of times we bump through life, and if we have a symptom, so let's say we're tired, we're going to go to Starbucks, right? And if we have a headache, we're going to take an Advil. And if we can't sleep, we're going to take a drug to sleep. And if we can't wake up in the morning, we might take a drug, and it could be over the counter like caffeine. But we go through our day treating ourselves, self-medicating, listening to symptoms and self-medicating just to get through our day. Like we have to drag our body through the mud. And these symptoms are actually the language of our body speaking to us in whispers, saying, hey, there's something off. Maybe I'm dehydrated. I've got achy joints. That might be dehydration. Or a headache. That might be dehydration. Something very small. Maybe I'm protein deficient. That edema is very commonly caused by protein deficiency. So there's just these little things, these little symptoms the body speaks to us. And yet we're just going to take a diuretic and move on, because we've been taught that when a symptom happens, we just can take a drug for it. And yet what happens is, if you're, for example, protein deficient, and you keep ignoring that and keep muting the symptom with a medication, either over the counter or prescribed, then, or maybe even a physical item like compression socks, and you don't stop to wonder what the root cause is, then what happens is the whisper becomes a scream and a yell, and it becomes a cosmic 2x4 that hits us over the head. And so what we need to do is step outside of our belief system and kind of start looking at, well, everything you put in your mouth, every kind of self-medication, you need to have that little pattern interrupt and go, why am I putting Advil in my mouth right now? Why am I not asking myself, why do I have a headache? And try to trace back my steps. If you start to write down every time you have a symptom, you'll notice that you probably have headaches more than you knew, or these symptoms that you've been self-medicating, like being tired and needing coffee. I had chronic adrenal fatigue for many years, and I needed 2 or 3 4-shot lattes. In fact, I actually convinced my manager, I was a sales manager of an international training company long ago, and I convinced the office manager that she needed to buy an espresso machine for the office because it would all be good for us. But really, I couldn't even function if I didn't have multiple shots of espresso throughout the day. And if I had stopped to listen to the symptoms of the body, I would have begun to see that I wasn't caffeine deficient, but my body needed something. It needed more sleep. It needed more water. It needed better food. It probably at that point, definitely needed supplements because I was so nutrient deficient because I was eating the standard American diet. And so listen, all the practitioners I have on my show have all said the same thing in different ways. Listen to the symptoms of your body. If you don't listen to the whisper, it's going to end up being something that breaks, right? By the time it is Alzheimer's, or by the time it is osteoporosis, even cancer, which 1 in 2 women in the United States and in Canada, and it's a very similar statistic for other countries, will have a diagnosis of cancer in their lifetime. And that is ridiculous. That means that multiple people that you know and love, and the statistic is 1 in 3 men, so it's very similar. That statistically means that many people you know and love will develop cancer. Cancer takes 8 years, between 4 and 8 years, to become a tumor. So it takes many years of going down the wrong path. And I assure you, there were symptoms that you weren't listening to that led up to that cancer, because we have been trained, we've been raised to believe that we can just go to the drugstore and self-medicate, or self-medicate with alcohol, with sugar, with caffeine. And so listen to the symptoms of the body is the first amazing step to be able to get your health back. And so, yeah, I have many more things I've learned. Everyone says eat more vegetables, eat organic. Many of my guests say definitely avoid the flu shot, avoid vaccinations. There are safe and alternative ways to vaccinate. It's called homeoprophylaxis. It's 100% safe and 90% effective to create immunity. Herbal medicine's fantastic. Getting on the 90 essential nutrients, vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and fatty acids. If you have a bunch of symptoms, you're probably nutrient deficient. So supporting the body at that time, eating a whole foods diet, eating more fats and less sugar. Pretty much all the people that I have interviewed have come to the conclusion through all their research and all their clinical experience that less refined sugar and better choices around your carbohydrates, and then way more healthy fats. And saturated fats are fine. People are afraid of eggs and afraid of virgin, raw, cold pressed organic coconut oil, but they're just finding so many benefits to increase fat and less carbohydrates. So in a nutshell, eating like we ate, 10,000 years ago and living like we lived 10,000 years ago, where we could do a lot of exercise, do a lot of walking, and eat a lot of really just healthy whole foods. Whole foods is one ingredient foods. And if you recognize all the ingredients, so there's broccoli, I'm going to eat broccoli. There's a sweet potato, I'm going to eat a sweet potato. There's a steak, I'm going to eat a steak. But if it has like a bunch of things you can't pronounce, don't eat it. So yeah, pretty, what I feel is common knowledge. What I feel is really common sense. Just because we know it's a smart thing to do, we all know to drink more water, get sleep, and eat vegetables, but do we? So it's when you see the value in it, when you really see the value in it, you'll implement that habit.
Yes. I told you guys, that Ashley was going to bring it today. So that one of the things you said really hit home with me about, I run into a lot of situations where I'm helping clients, transform their lifestyle, trying to get them to eat more fats, things like that. And then their MD runs in, we run into the old MD freight train. They're like, my doctor says that this diet is making me unhealthy, and that they learned in medical school, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, because my sister's a pediatrician. So I asked her, I'm like, how many hours of nutrition do you guys go through? She's like, none, basically.
Okay. First of all, my beef with pediatricians, and I only have my child, I have a 2.5-year-old son. So you don't know my story, but when I was 19 years old, I was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome and told I'd never have kids. I used natural medicine to heal my body, reverse polycystic ovarian syndrome, which I was told by the MDs my entire adult life that it would never go away. I just got my blood work back recently from my naturopath, who gave me like 5 gold stars and said that I don't have polycystic ovarian syndrome, which I know because I don't have any of the symptoms anymore. It's 100% reversible. Most diagnoses that MDs want to give you a drug for the rest of your life for are completely reversible. I had type 2 diabetes, 100% reversible. I reversed it naturally. I had chronic adrenal fatigue, high blood pressure. My husband had arthritis. That's reversible, by the way. It doesn't matter what age you are. You could be 90 and reverse your arthritis. Do not believe what the MD says when it comes to your healing. Okay, they're going on very old information. If they're not staying current with I had a great guest. I'm going to be publishing this show today, actually. It's with a naturopath who's heavily involved in the research And so he works with all the other doctors who are heavily involved in the research side of things. And he loves to bring the science and prove and disprove a lot of the old myths that the MDs are still holding on to. If your doctor graduated 20 or 30 years ago and doesn't stay current with all of the research, then they're giving you old information. For example, people think aluminum causes Alzheimer's because when they first took a bunch of brains that they sliced it up, put it on an aluminum pan, and then studied them, the aluminum leached into the brains, and then the doctor said, "Oh, aluminum causes Alzheimer's." Well, I grew up thinking aluminum caused Alzheimer's until I learned from an ND who read the back of all the journals where they rescind the things they said in the previous publication. And it said in the back of the journal, "Oh, sorry, that doctor figured out that he was using aluminum aluminum trays." Yeah. And so another example is Christopher Columbus never ever came to never came to America, never set foot in America, and did not. People were taught in school that Christopher Columbus actually discovered America. Not true. And that's because it was a book that was written in the 1800s, not the 1400s or the 1500s. In the 1800s, there was a book that was a fictitious book written about Christopher Columbus. And that fictitious book was then, so popular that people believed the fiction. So if an entire nation could be brainwashed back in the 1800s, it can certainly be brainwashed now. And there's a lot of brainwashing around the MDs, and then the MDs have this hubris that they carry, this giant ego because they paid so much money for their education, and their education is brainwashing. If you look at their residency, they have to be up for 24 hours straight. Their food changes. If you look at how you want to brainwash someone, they did a lot of studies. The U.S. government did a lot of studies on how to brainwash people, and they figured out that you restrict change their diet, so you change their biochemistry, and you restrict their sleep, and then they're more susceptible to the suggestions you give them. And so MDs are brainwashed to fit into this certain mold, and that's why most of them still will say things like, "If you want more calcium, drink milk." And you should avoid fat. Fat's bad for you. Eggs are bad for you. And you need to be on cholesterol medication because cholesterol is bad for you. These are all completely myths. They've been disproven by a lot of research, but the doctors aren't listening to the research. So you have to listen to the symptoms of your body. And if you eat a diet that's healing for you, and you know it's healing for you, and you feel really good on it, you're the expert of your own body. Don't let a doctor tell you that if you're eating a whole foods diet, high in healthy fats, and you're getting really great results, and then your doctor says, "Oh, your cholesterol is bad. We got to get you on a cholesterol drug." Seek a second opinion, a third opinion, and especially go to a holistic practitioner and find one that loves to stay current on the research.
Yeah, that's probably the best advice. And if you guys only have one takeaway, make that note: is do more research, get more opinions, and inform yourself, educate yourself. That's when we talk about your health and your body, you get one of those. So it's a very important situation. So I think this is a good time to transition into the topic of anxiety, because when you had mentioned that you have some ideas on curing anxiety, healing our anxiety. That was a big deal to me because I have suffered from anxiety in the past, where I've actually had to go to the hospital before because I thought I was having a heart attack. So I know what people that have anxiety and anxiety attacks, what they're going through, and it is vicious. And
right.
It's just, it really felt like I seriously thought I was having a heart attack, and off to the hospital we go, and they're like, "No, you're actually the healthiest person we've ever had in here." And
yeah, you were having a panic attack. That's really common. And there's a few things. So I don't know if you've ever heard of Daily Om, but they asked me to make a course for them based on, I've been teaching this for many years. Since 2005, actually, I've been teaching these techniques. But even before 2005, I've been coaching people. So what you were experiencing was a panic attack, and there's a list of symptoms that go along with panic attacks. So if you have like 4 or 5 of these symptoms combined, then it's classified as a panic attack. sweaty palms, dizzy, nausea, headache, heart palpitations. There are several others. Pain in your chest, shortness of breath. This could be completely caused by an emotional response. So it can start as a thought in your head, an emotion, and then your autonomic nervous system, I'm sure you've heard of fight or flight. That's the autonomic nervous system. It's a part of the nervous system that either causes you to go into rest and digest mode and heal mode, which we do when we're meditating, when we're doing light exercise, when we're laughing with friends, or when we're sleeping or getting a massage or yoga. And then there's the opposite of that, which is the fight or flight response. And we need that response. It's part of our survival. But the problem is it's been overtapped, especially in this day and age where we're eating foods that constantly trigger the stress response. We're watching the news, which triggers the stress response. We're thinking about our bills. At least 10,000 years ago, the only thing we had to worry about was escaping the lion, or not bumping into the bear in the middle of the woods. But other than that, we really didn't have the amount of stress we do have today. And so it can start with a thought, and your body reacts to your thoughts as though they are real, meaning as though they're actually happening. So you could, by sitting here right now, increase your heart rate and cause your adrenals to excrete adrenaline and cortisol. If you were to think, you could actually think yourself into a panic attack, just like you can think yourself into a state of relaxation. We were not raised in our education system to have control over the thing in between our ears. We were not taught how to control our perception of reality. And so we often are kind of walking around still like we're children when it comes to life, just reacting to situations. And we need to slow down, just like we need to listen to symptoms of the body. We need to slow down and listen to the thought processes that are happening, because we will latch on to the negatives as a means of survival. Back in the past, however, let's say we've been here 2 million years, however long you believe we've been here. Certain religions believe we've only been here for a shorter period of time, but either way, everyone believes we've been here for thousands of years. And in all the thousands of years we've been here, we needed to survive. And in doing so, we needed to, though those who survived thought about the negative things that could happen and planned for them. But what happens is now we obsess over the negative things. And that obsession, let's say I get a bill in the mail. And then what happens in my mind is like, oh my God, I don't know if I have enough money to pay that bill. I'm not going to be able to pay the rent. I'm going to be homeless. I'm going to be dead. Like, that is what happens. And we might not realize it, but we really go from like, I don't know if I have enough money to pay that bill to I'm dead very quickly in our mind. And this is, again, it was a survival mechanism, but now if we don't start to control the processes of what's going on and interject and go, okay, you know what, okay, great, I'm going to pay this bill. How am I going to pay it? And I see myself successfully paying this bill. We need to do things like that, because the constant obsession about what's going to go wrong, all the potentiality of what's going to go wrong, is what's triggering the stress response. And so the body reacts. And so when you have a panic attack, it's like you have triggered that stress response so many times in your body that now your body's just going into this massive shock of the bear's chasing me, the bear's chasing me. And you're sitting there going like, I'm just having my morning coffee. Like, why do I feel like I'm about to die? And that's just because it's just overwhelm. It's the tipping point. So, we definitely want to prevent the panic attacks and get way back to the beginning, get to the root cause. What is anxiety? Let's start with that. Many people think anxiety is a negative emotion like anger, sadness, fear, hurt, and guilt. And it is not. In fact, anxiety is unlike any other emotion. It's on its own plane of existence. It is not an emotion at all. It is a warning light on our internal dashboard. It is a message from our unconscious mind to focus on what we want. And now I'll explain that. So you can have all of the negative emotions, the whole spectrum of negative emotions, minus anxiety. about the past. So you could sit here and think about a time in your past where you were really angry. And if you thought about it long enough, you could physically feel the anger right now. And that means you haven't resolved that issue. There's a whole technique that I teach on how to resolve negative emotions from the past so they stop affecting you now, which means they stop. You stop reliving them in the future. And fear, you could think of something you were really afraid of and still feel the fear now. Sadness, grief, hurt, guilt, shame, remorse, all the negative emotions you could possibly think about, and the good emotions, right? You could probably think about a time in the past when you were ecstatic. You were so happy that life was just so amazing. You were on top of the world, and you could start to feel that emotion creep into your body, maybe in your upper chest, like a warmth. Right? So we can activate emotions by thinking about past events in which they were strong memories with those emotions. And yet you cannot feel anxiety if you think about something that's already happened. Think about the time that you wrote that exam or took that driving test. You can remember maybe the excitement. You could possibly feel that excitement or may feel the fear, but you cannot feel anxiety about a past event because anxiety is not an emotion about the past. It is an emotion about the future. More specifically, it's an emotion about a future in which something you do not want to have happen occurs. Now, what you and I know is we're not, okay, I know that some people believe they're psychic, and I'm sure we're all intuitive on some level, but getting down to the reality of the situation, we do not know what's going to happen in the future. We could accurately predict based on maybe looking at past models, but you never know what's going to happen in the future, right? So the future is unwritten, and we could change our minds about something and it would affect the future. So if the future is unwritten, then you focusing on the worst case scenarios, these worst case scenarios aren't written in stone, right? Just like the best case scenarios aren't written in stone. But if you focus on the worst case scenarios, you cause anxiety, which causes your body to go in stress response. Then what's really interesting about that is the next thing that happens is it shunts blood away from the logic centers of your brain. So now you can't think clearly. So now you can't think clearly about the decisions you're going to make, and you end up creating a much negative future than you would have if you had focused on the positive future that hadn't happened yet. There's something called target fixation, in which when people ride motorcycles, and this goes for anything in life, but they use it a lot for motorcycles, is when you're going around a corner in a motorcycle. If you look at a target that you do not want to hit, you will steer towards it. Same with being on a bicycle. We learn very quickly when we're riding bicycles and riding motorcycles to not steer in the direction that we're looking. But what often happens is if a motorcyclist will look at a pole when they're making a corner, and they keep looking at it because they're thinking I don't want to hit that pole. I don't want to hit that pole. They will literally steer into it and hit it. And I have a video in my course that's going to be coming out in Daily Ohm in the next month. I submitted it to them recently. And so look for it at Daily Ohm. My name is Ashley James. And they're making it super cheap, like $25, which is ridiculous because I would have charged $2,500. But this course, I show videos of people doing this with target fixation, where motorists will drive into things they didn't mean to drive into because they were looking at them. There's even videos of people, racers, driving into the stands while doing motocross because they were looking at the audience that were in some bleachers, and they thought to themselves, I don't want to hit that audience. When we think to ourselves, I don't want to X, the unconscious mind doesn't hear the don't want to. The unconscious mind simply focuses on what we imagine. So if we imagine hitting someone, and they say to yourself, I don't want to hit that person, the unconscious mind just sees hitting that person. Could you share with us, do you remember around the time that you went to the hospital, what were you worried about happening in your life? Can you remember right now?
Yeah. I had just opened a new fitness facility, and the owner of our place that we were renting decided to put a brand new roof on during the middle of the worst winter we've ever had. So we had flooding through the roof the entire winter. So that was the stress point. So I was worried about losing my business.
Got it. So you said to yourself, a roof's being replaced. I'm going to lose my business. We're going to be homeless. I'm going to die.
Exactly.
Yeah. So does getting a roof replaced mean you're going to lose your business?
No, it does not.
No, it does not. But I mean, it could, right? You could lose your business and not have a roof replaced, right?
Correct.
Right. So, but the fact is, this is what we do. And so I'd love to teach your audience a technique where if you use this technique every day, you will completely eliminate anxiety because it rewires the brain. So, Adam, do you have anything right now in your life that's happening in the future that when you think about it, you can physically feel anxiety right now?
Yes. We are currently, it's not as bad as, the whole roof caving in thing, but we're trying to sell our house. And, there's always the worry of what if we can't sell it and we can't move in time and all that. So that's causing the stress and the anxiety to build for sure.
Great. Can you feel the anxiety right now? When you think about your house not selling, can you feel the anxiety right now?
Sure. Yes.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most, 0 being nothing, where would you say you are?
6.
6. Great. Okay. Are you ready, Adam? And all the listeners, I'd like you to think about something that's happening in the future that when you think about it right now, you feel anxiety, even if it's a 1. I just want you to, by the way, I was invited to Unity Church in Linwood, here in Washington. And I taught in front of all the hundreds of people. I taught this exercise and it was really fun because I asked them, it's like 9 a.m. and everyone's probably still waking up. And I said to them on a Sunday, and I said, okay, I asked them to think about something in the future. They have anxiety. And I said, okay, put up your hand if you can feel anxiety right now. 98% of the people put their hand up. I was like, well, I was impressed. So we did the exercise and I said, okay, who still has anxiety? And one person put their hand up. And then I asked him one qualifying question and his anxiety went away. And so then, I get 100% success rate with this. If you don't get success with this, I want you to take my course in DailyOM. And you can also email me, Ashley@learntoyourhealth.com, because this technique has been working with everyone. In fact, I've had a lot of people come back to me and say, obviously working with their doctor, they got off of their anti-anxiety medication. There's no need to be on anti-anxiety medication. This is absolutely ridiculous. You can learn how to control your thoughts and your stress response in a way that's healing for you. Many of the medications out there are I don't want to say crutches, because at the moment, if a medication stops you from committing suicide, I want you to be on it, right? If a medication stops you from just living on the couch because you're so depressed, I want you to be on it. But there's so many medications that you don't need to be on and that are so healthy to figure out to get to the root cause so that you can be off of it. So that's my hope for you, is that you get your health back to the point where you don't have any symptoms, because that is the definition of health, is living a life without symptoms. Okay, so here's the technique. So please, you have this event, a specific time in the future where you're thinking about it. Right now, you're feeling anxiety around it. So I want you to go ahead and close your eyes. And what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to float above your timeline. So imagine your whole life is like a big road behind you and in front of you. And I'd like you to float out 15 minutes past the successful completion of the event for which you have had anxiety around. So in Adam's case, I'd like you to float out 15 minutes past the successful completion of the sale of your house. Look down on that event. And for the audience, for the listeners, float 15 minutes past the successful completion of the event that you've had anxiety around. Look down on the event. Where's your anxiety, Adam?
None.
It's gone, right? Right. So for those who still have anxiety, what I want you to do is ask yourself, am I imagining the successful completion? And 15 minutes past the successful completion. Some people just imagine the completion, in which case they're still imagining the worst case scenario. So I want you to imagine, and remember, this is make believe, just like you imagining the worst case scenario is utter make believe. But it feels very real. especially because the body responds to it, right? So the body responds to all of our thoughts as though they're real. So now we need to take the wheel of our thoughts. We need to take control, because otherwise the monkey brain's just controlling us, right? So you have to take control of your thoughts, and you have to steer them every time they go towards thinking about the worst case scenario. Now, I believe it is good, like a Boy Scout, to always be prepared. Here's the difference, because some people say to me, but I need to plan. I need to plan for worst case scenarios, right? And yes, sure. But planning and lamenting are two different things. We don't plan, we lament. If you were planning for your house not selling, you would have thought of other things like, okay, well, we're going to renovate it, or we're going to rent it, or we're going to get a new realtor. That's planning. But you don't have to have anxiety when you're planning. You're just in action mode, right? Research and action. When you are lamenting, you're sitting there frozen, because fight or flight also has a third element, which is freeze. We just freeze and we go, oh my God, this is like everything's going to crumble down around me. I'm going to go bankrupt. I'm going to be homeless. I'm going to die. And so that's how we respond. So you might think, but because you're thinking about worst case scenarios, that you're planning. You are not planning. Planning does not involve emotion. You do not have to have anxiety when planning, and planning is smart. But once you've done the plan, so for example, I don't sit here and think, I live in, near Seattle, where there's supposed to be a big earthquake one day, knock on wood, never in my lifetime, but I plan for it. I have my 3 days of emergency water and food and yada, yada. And my family has a plan. The plan has been created, and then I can stop thinking about it, move on with my day. But when you lament, you're not stopping thinking about it, move on with your day. No, this is an obsession that sits in the back of your mind and eats away at you. So I invite you to plan instead of lament. And every time you have anxiety in life, I want you to do this technique. Now, there's some people that might still have anxiety. And here's why. There's a deeper root issue. So I'll give you an example. I was working with an author who's also a podcaster, has published his first book, and that was a success, but he was about to launch his second book. And I said to him, okay, great. What are you anxious about? And he says, the release of my book. And I said, great. Okay, go 15 minutes past the successful completion of your book launch. And I said, where's the anxiety? And he goes, and I'm like, okay. He says, it's about a 3 now. We went from like a 6 to a 3. And I said, okay, great. What are you anxious about right now? So that's the next question you have to ask yourself. And he went, oh, the reviews. And I said, okay, great. Go 15 minutes past the successful completion of all of the reviews. And he's like, all of them? Because, that could be like in 100 years. Like, when's the last review going to come in for his book? And I said, yeah, go 15 minutes past the successful completion of all the reviews. Now, successful completion. So he has to imagine that it's like a 4 out of 5 or, 5-star kind of thing. I said, where's the anxiety? He says, it's gone. And this has been eating at him for a long time. And then he said to me, he had this big epiphany. He said, after every podcast interview that I do, I sit in my chair, even though if it was good or not, I slump down, sit in my chair, and for about an hour, my wife can't even talk to me. I'm so depressed. And he said, I didn't realize it, but what I was doing was thinking about all of the people that don't like me and all of the people that don't like my work, like all made up. Like he's making up this mob of people in his head that were criticizing him somewhere on the planet after they listened to his interview, because he's considering the worst case scenario. And human rejection is part of survival. We need to be accepted by the tribe to survive. And so this fear of human rejection can cause a lot of anxiety. And so now, after every episode that he does in his podcast, he sits there and he imagines that the successful completion of every listener ever listening to the episode and how great it was in their life. And it fills him with joy, and he moves on with his day. So this technique is very simple. It seems too simple, but simply what it is switching from focusing on what you don't want, which triggers the stress response, shunts blood away from the logic centers of your brain so you can't think clearly. You make bad decisions, you end up creating bad scenarios in your mind. Imagine that first date where you're so anxious and you're worried that you're going to screw it up. You end up screwing it up because of your anxiety, or that job offer, or that, that presentation. You literally will create, this is target fixation. You will create what you're focusing on. So focus on what you want.
Outstanding. My goodness. It's so neat that it's just a one-step process. And like you said, it almost seems too simple, but if we give this an honest chance, it works. I think everybody listening out there, We all have all probably, I know that I felt better. I feel better. And I love the extra step of, okay, if you're still feeling anxiety, what are you actually feeling anxious about? And then go 15 minutes in front of the successful completion of that. So you kind of stair step it out until it just all dissipates.
Mm-hmm. So there's one more, there's some homework for the listeners. Yes, you don't have to have, you don't have to have anxiety to do this. So that was like, this is the acute, and you're handling it in the moment, sort of like a Band-Aid when you're bleeding, right? This technique you use when you have anxiety right now. And that's good because it's going to rewire your brain. But what's going to rewire your brain faster is doing this exercise every day, whether you have anxiety or not. And here's how you do that. So you pick something you do every day, right? So let's say you brew coffee every morning or you go to the bathroom every day. This is habit stacking, is picking something you naturally already do. So a habit you do 7 days a week, regardless of whether, so brushing your teeth. If you know that regardless of what day it is, you're going to brush your teeth, if regardless of whether you're traveling, you're on a business trip, you're going to brush your teeth, then that is a great habit to stack other habits on. So what I want you to do is pick a habit. So like I like putting my hands on the steering wheel in the morning, so I'm always going to drive somewhere in the morning, that kind of thing. If you know you drive somewhere 7 days a week, you pick a time in the morning. So whether it's being on the toilet, brushing your teeth, brewing your coffee, putting your hands on the steering wheel, whatever it is, and take 30 seconds to do this one exercise. Imagine the successful completion of the events that you're doing that day. So you're going to the gym. I want you to imagine the successful completion. You don't have to go 15 minutes past because this is not anxiety we're handling. What we're doing is we're setting up your unconscious mind to focus on what you want. So imagine you're right at the end of your workout and you're like drenched. If this is the successful completion of workout to you, if you're drenched in sweat, looking in the mirror, smiling and feeling really great about your workout. In fact, I want you to imagine the end of the best workout of your life. What would the best workout of your life look like? What would it feel like? And what would you hear? What thoughts would you be thinking to yourself if that was the best workout of your life? Now, going to a day of work, right? What would happen for it to be the best day at work? And not like, I won the lottery, and I didn't have to go to work. I'm not talking about something that is kind of like too outside of it. I mean, like within the parameters of normality, what would be the absolute best day at work? So every client calls you back, your boss high fives you, you landed a new account, or whatever the parameters of the best day at work would look like. Imagine the best day at work. And the end of the best day of work, what would you be saying to yourself? What is the evidence for the best day of work? How would you be feeling? How would you be sitting? Maybe even pull your shoulders back, get your physiology involved, smile. And then I want you to imagine the best drive home. So what does the best drive home look like? Every light was green. It was amazing. There's this one street, I can't remember the name of it, but from Chicago to up in Evanston. So I don't know, maybe a 45-minute drive. There's this one street, it's like Lakeshore or something. And there's like 50 lights. And one day my uncle, who used to work near the water tower in Chicago and lived in Evanston, Illinois, he got every green light. And he was like the best yes. commute of his life. Normally what took maybe an hour, took 35 minutes. I don't know. But he was just like, I did not see one red light. I hit the magic time where my entire commute was green light, green light, green light. And so just what you do is you imagine whatever the best commute is, you coming home. And if there's anything in your life that you sort of hesitate around or resist, or there's typically some negativity, like maybe like dealing with your teenage son or talking to your spouse because you guys are fighting, whatever. Instead of imagining, oh, well, he's going to fight again because whatever, or, I have to make dinner again and everyone's going to complain. Whatever you normally, all that self-talk where it's very negative, instead imagine the success of it. And what this does is it tells your unconscious mind to steer towards that. It sets you up, it actually sets up your reticular activating system. It's a part of your brain called the reticular activating system that is designed to delete, distort, and generalize millions of bits of information that are coming in through all your five senses. And so if there's a bunch of good things happening, but you don't believe good things happen to you, you will not see them. You will filter them out. That's a reticular activating system. Now, if you've been shopping for a BMW or Subaru, all of a sudden, every car you see is a BMW. If you've been shopping for a red sweater, all of a sudden it's sort of like ads that follow you. You shop for a blender and all of a sudden every ad's a blender. And whatever you're looking for in life. So if you're focusing on a negative, your reticular activating system will show you evidence of that negative. If you're focusing on a positive, the reticular activating system will show you evidence. Your reality, the fabric of your reality, will change based on your focus. And that's why it's so important to focus on what you want. And imagine in the future the things you want to have happen.
And that is so in line. I mean, we've talked about my story of my 5-year goal setting plan, and I read it and felt it and visualized that every single day for 5 years, twice a day. And it's just so in line with that. And that's what I love when I get to have a conversation with Ashley, is that, I've got a lot of energy and a lot of personal momentum, and she's got the actual data to back up all my crazy things that I do. Science.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what I love about you. And wow. I really enjoy just sitting back and listening to you go off on your topics, Ashley. This is, for those of you that listen to Learn True Health, she's usually the one interviewing and kind of navigating the conversation. I told her, I really like her input. So this has been like a dream come true. I'm just taking furious notes. And yes, I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so where can my people connect with you? Obviously, the Learn True Health podcast, but where, social media, where do you like to connect with people? Where is the best place that they can connect with you?
Oh, so they can join I joined your Facebook group. I think it's awesome. I've been having fun in it. They can join my Facebook group. It's Learn True Health in, Facebook. You can search it in Facebook, or you can go to learntruehealth.com/group. That'll redirect you to the Facebook group. But yeah, you could join the Facebook group and, obviously listen to the podcast. It's, I interview a lot of fantastic people, and I like to teach also within the episode, because it's more my interview style, which is a lot like yours. It's a casual conversation. And sometimes I give input where I can't resist, I'm just right. Like, oh, I have something to share here. So I love teaching also, but the primary aspect of my podcast is to teach people holistic health through interviewing amazing doctors and holistic health practitioners that are getting really, really great results. And holistic health isn't just physical. It's emotional, mental, spiritual, and energetic. So we cover the gamut. I've had some really amazing people on the show, and including yourself. And that was a great interview that we just released. So it was a lot of fun. So they can go to learntruehealth.com, which is my website, or they can find me on iTunes. And I'd love for them to subscribe and give a 5-star rating and review for your podcast and my podcast, because that's how you give a little virtual tip in the tip jar of the podcaster. If you love listening to someone's podcast, give them a 5-star rating and written review in iTunes, and subscribe and download there. And of course, share. I say, let's turn this ripple into a tidal wave and help as many people as possible. And how you're going to do that is by sharing this episode today. If you got anything out of what I said, please share Adam's show with your friends and family. Please share them this episode, because we can make a really big difference in the lives of so many people. Adam, you're just at the beginning of your journey. Even though you've accomplished so much already, you are just at the beginning of your £1 million loss challenge goal. And how we're going to get there is through a community effort. So you, as a listener who's listening to me right now, you are going to make a difference. You are going to make a difference by sharing this podcast and by sharing this episode with your friends and family, because they'll share it with their friends and family, and they'll share it with theirs. And there might be someone who just cried themselves to sleep last night because they feel so desperately lost, because they're overweight, or they're diabetic, or they can't achieve their fitness goals. That was me for many years. And I felt helpless. There are people who might even be suicidal because they feel so hopeless when it comes to their health or their emotional health. And you, by sharing this, could save someone's life and completely change someone's life. So you have a lot of power, and it is up to you and the whole community to help achieve the £1 million loss, which I'm so inspired by. So Adam, I love what you do, and I'm very excited for all of you listeners to help turn this ripple into a tidal wave and help as many people as possible by sharing the crap out of this episode.
Yes. Yes. I concur. And I think we can scientifically prove that if they do share, then on their next commute home from work, they will only have green lights. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. So,
I love it.
It has the scientific data to prove my theories now. So it'll be coming. It's science. So now I want to put you guys into action. We want to, like Ashley said, we can take this ripple and create a movement. We can create momentum, but it starts with you taking action. So you know that I love to see you take action in the next 24 hours. So take one little nugget that you got from this podcast, whether it's one of the techniques in dealing with anxiety and stress, or something that you mentioned just about being your own healer and getting yourself informed about your own health and your own body and your own healing. Take action. And always, you can interact with us online. Like Ashley said, she's in my Facebook group. I'm going to be in her Facebook group. So we have a full Facebook group community connection going on. So you're not going to be able to avoid us, and you know where to find us. So Ashley, I just wanted to acknowledge you and just thank you at just being, you're just a beacon of light in this area of healing and giving people hope and opportunity to learn. And you're bringing all this knowledge together in one convenient place where people can absorb it, absorb what is useful to them, and then take action. I think that is so amazing that you're building all this momentum. You're using these connections for good. And I'm just super proud of you. I look up to you as one of my podcast heroes for sure. And, I just respect you and the value you're bringing to the health place, to the health market is amazing. So thank you so much for your time, my friend.
Thank you.
All right, my friends. Now, like I said, it's time for action. The next 24 hours, what is your action step going to be so that you can not only just absorb this information, but put it to good use? And with that, as always, I'm going to tell you to get out there. I want you to own it every meal, every workout, every day. I will see you on the next episode. One last thing before I let you go today. So many of you have been contacting me about taking action. Where's the best place to start? What program should I be on? So I went into the Transformation Lab and I created something new. It's my Transformed Academy, and registration is officially and finally open. All right, I'm loading up all of my best workout protocols, all the follow-along workouts that you love, and developing more every month. I'm loading up all my best nutrition programs of all types. As I talked about, you need the right tool for the job, whether that's paleo, low carb, high carb, carb cycling, clean eating, keto, whatever. We've got the right tool, and we're going to teach you how to use that tool. Then we also have accountability groups, coaching calls with me, and so much more. The best part is the information never gets stale because I add new programs every 90 days. And the even better part, you're going to freak out when you see the price. Head on over to www.transformationcoach.me and check out the Transformed Academy.